Mushrooms are genuinely fascinating from a neurometabolic perspective, and they're one of the foods where I feel more optimistic about the potential benefits with fewer major red flags. Let's explore why mushrooms might support brain health through ND plus metabolism, while also acknowledging the limitations of what we actually know versus what's being marketed in the wellness space. Mushrooms contain B vitamins, including small amounts of niacin, though they're not the richest source. More importantly, mushrooms contain unique compounds called ergothioneine and other antioxidants that you don't find in many other foods. Ergothioneine is particularly interesting because it concentrates in mitochondria, exactly where ND+ is doing much of its critical work in energy production. By reducing oxidative stress in these cellular powerhouses, mushrooms may help preserve NAD+ that would otherwise be consumed in DNA repair and stress response. The biological logic here is about conservation rather than synthesis. If you can reduce the cellular damage that forces cells to burn through ND+ for emergency repairs, you effectively make the ND+ you have work more efficiently. It's like fixing the leak in a bucket rather than just pouring more water in. This is a legitimate and important distinction from foods that primarily provide NAD+ precursors. Different mushroom varieties have different compound profiles. Shiitake, maitake, and reishi mushrooms have been studied more extensively than common button mushrooms, and they contain polysaccharides that may modulate immune function and reduce inflammation. Some studies suggest these mushrooms activate cellular stress resistance pathways, potentially including sirtuins, which are ND+, dependent enzymes critical for longevity and stress resistance. However, much of this research is preliminary, conducted in cell cultures or animal models, and we need to be cautious about extrapolating to human Alzheimer's disease. Here's where the mushroom conversation gets muddy. The supplement industry has latched onto mushrooms, particularly exotic varieties like lion's mane, reishi, and cordyceps, making extraordinary claims about cognitive enhancement and neuroprotection. Some of these claims may have merit, but they've far outpaced the science. Clinical trials in humans are limited, sample sizes are small, and many studies have methodological problems. The compounds in mushrooms are real, but whether eating mushrooms or taking mushroom extracts meaningfully impacts Alzheimer's disease progression is still an open question. Safety-wise, culinary mushrooms are generally very safe for most people. Allergies exist, but are relatively rare. However, there's an important caveat about sourcing. Mushrooms are bioaccumulators. They absorb heavy metals and other contaminants from their growing medium. Mushrooms grown in contaminated soil or near industrial areas can contain dangerous levels of cadmium, lead, or other toxins. This is why knowing your source matters. Commercially cultivated mushrooms from reputable suppliers are generally tested and safe, but foraged mushrooms are a different story entirely. Obviously, I need to mention that when we talk about mushrooms for health, we're talking about culinary and medicinal mushrooms, not psilocybin-containing mushrooms. While there's emerging research on psilocybin for depression and other psychiatric conditions, that's an entirely separate conversation with different legal and safety considerations. The recommended intake for brain health benefits would be several servings per week. Mushrooms are low in calories, high in fiber, and generally supportive of gut health, which has indirect effects on brain health through the gut-brain axis. They're also incredibly versatile in cooking, making them easy to incorporate into various dietary patterns. One limitation worth noting: if someone has severe gut dysfunction or certain types of inflammatory bowel disease, mushrooms can be difficult to digest due to their cell wall composition, which includes chitin. For some people, they can cause bloating or digestive distress, which creates systemic stress that could theoretically work against the benefits we're trying to achieve. In conclusion, mushrooms offer a reasonable, relatively safe addition to a brain health-focused diet with antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties that may help preserve NAD+ function. The benefits are more about cellular protection than direct NAD+ synthesis, but that's still valuable.